Ladies and gentlemen, toxic people. We've all encountered them. Some criticize relentlessly, some manipulate, and others drain the energy from every room they walk into. But here's the truth. We can't always avoid toxic people, but we can choose how we deal with them. First, recognize the signs. Toxicity isn't always obvious. It's often subtle. Maybe it's a friend who belittles your dreams, a colleague who constantly plays the victim, or someone whose negativity feels like a dark cloud over your sunny day. Smart people tune into these patterns and, more importantly, accept them for what they are, not as a reflection of themselves, but of the other person's struggles. Next, boundaries. It's not a dirty word, it's a life skill. Boundaries protect what matters: your time, your energy, and your sanity. Imagine you're building a fence around your peace. It's not to shut people out, it's to show them where the gate is. You decide who enters and under what terms. And when things get tense, stay composed. Toxic people thrive on chaos and emotional reactions. Smart people don't hand them that power. They stay grounded, like a steady tree in the storm, refusing to let the wind dictate their roots. But sometimes conversations spiral, don't they? That's where redirecting or disengaging comes in. It's not avoidance, it's wisdom. If the topic veers toward negativity or blame, steer it elsewhere. If the person refuses to shift, step away. Not to retreat, but to protect your energy. Above all, smart people never seek validation from the toxic. They're guided by their values, not by the need to win someone over or avoid conflict. They know that their worth isn't up for negotiation, least of all with someone who can't see it. Finally, and this is key, smart people seek growth, not revenge. Every encounter, even the challenging ones, is a chance to grow. Dealing with toxicity isn't about proving a point, it's about proving to yourself that you can rise above it. So here's the takeaway. Treating toxic people isn't about outsmarting them. It's about staying true to yourself. You don't have to fight their fire with fire. Instead, you can choose to shine so brightly that their shadows can't touch you. Recognizing the signs of toxic behavior is essential because it empowers you to navigate those situations with clarity and purpose. Toxicity doesn't always announce itself loudly. It can be subtle, masked as humor, charm, or even concern. That's why smart people pay attention to patterns rather than focusing on isolated incidents. They know that toxic behavior often reveals itself over time in consistent and predictable ways. It might show up in conversations where you feel drained instead of energized, where words are laced with sarcasm or backhanded compliments. It could be someone who constantly interrupts, dismisses your ideas, or makes you question your own judgment. Toxic individuals often carry an air of negativity, finding problems in every solution, steering discussions toward conflict, or making every situation about themselves. You might notice a pattern of manipulation, like when someone tries to guilt you for your choices, twist your words to fit their narrative, or subtly undermine your confidence. What's important here is understanding that toxic behavior is not always intentional. Many people act out of unresolved pain, insecurity, or fear, projecting their struggles onto others. Recognizing this doesn't mean excusing their behavior. It means you can approach the situation without taking it personally. The behavior reflects their challenges, not your worth. When you start noticing these patterns, trust your instincts. Often, your emotions are the first clue. Feeling anxious, defensive, or frustrated around someone can signal that something is off. Awareness allows you to pause, reflect, and decide how you want to engage. Recognizing the signs is not about labeling or judging people. It's about equipping yourself with the understanding to protect your peace and maintain healthy interactions. Once you see the signs, you can start creating strategies to address them. It's like stepping out of a fog. You gain clarity about what's happening and reclaim control over your responses. Toxic behavior only has power when it goes unnoticed or unchecked. When you recognize it, you're no longer caught off guard. Instead, you're prepared to choose your next steps wisely, and that's where real strength lies. Setting boundaries is one of the most empowering things you can do when dealing with toxic people. Boundaries aren't walls meant to isolate you from others. They're guidelines that define how you want to be treated and what you are willing to tolerate. Smart people understand that boundaries are not just about keeping toxic behavior out of the sustainability of your life. They're about creating space for respect, growth, and positive relationships. When you set boundaries, you are communicating your needs and priorities clearly. This isn't selfish, it's essential. Without boundaries, you risk becoming a dumping ground for negativity, manipulation, or disrespect. Boundaries act as a safeguard for your energy, time, and emotional well-being. They help you focus on what truly matters, rather than getting dragged into the chaos that toxic people often create. The key to setting boundaries is clarity and consistency. You don't have to over-explain or justify your limits. A simple statement like, "I'm not comfortable discussing this," or "I need some space to think," can be incredibly effective. What matters most is following through. Toxic people will often test your boundaries, pushing to see if you'll give in. Smart people stay firm, understanding that holding the line is not about being harsh, but about being respectful, both to themselves and to the other person. Boundaries also include saying no, and that can feel uncomfortable at first. Many of us are conditioned to prioritize harmony or avoid conflict, but smart people know that a well-placed no can be a powerful act of self-care. It's not about rejecting someone. It's about protecting your ability to show up fully in the areas of life that matter most to you. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you'll avoid all toxic behavior. It means you'll create a structure to deal with it effectively. It shifts the dynamic. Instead of reacting to toxicity, you're proactively deciding how you'll engage. You're not letting someone else's negativity dictate your emotional state. Ultimately, boundaries are about respect. Respect for yourself and the relationships you choose to invest in. They're not about controlling others, but about taking control of your own experience. By setting boundaries, you're not just defending yourself, you're defining yourself. You're making it clear that you value your time, your peace, and your happiness enough to protect them. And that is one of the smartest things you can do. Staying composed in the face of toxic behavior is one of the most challenging yet vital skills you can develop. Toxic people often thrive on chaos, provocation, and emotional reactions. They may use criticism, manipulation, or drama to push buttons and escalate situations. Smart people, however, understand the power of composure. They know that staying calm is not a sign of weakness, but a demonstration of strength and control. When you remain composed, you take away the toxic individual's power to dictate your emotions. Think of it as holding a steady posture in a storm. The wind may howl and the rain may pour, but you stay grounded, refusing to let external turbulence disrupt your internal peace. This calm demeanor disarms toxic people. They expect and often feed off emotional responses like anger, frustration, or defensiveness. When those responses don't come, they lose their grip on the situation. Staying composed doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or pretending that the behavior doesn't affect you. It means choosing how you respond rather than letting someone else control that choice. This requires self-awareness and a moment of pause before reacting. In that pause, you can assess what's happening, remind yourself that their behavior reflects on them, not you, and decide the best course of action. Composure also allows you to maintain clarity and focus. Toxic interactions can be emotionally draining and confusing, often designed to pull you into their spiral of negativity. But when you stay calm, you're better able to see through the noise. You can identify manipulative tactics, set boundaries, or disengage if necessary. You respond thoughtfully, not impulsively, which often leaves toxic people unsure of how to proceed. One of the most valuable tools for maintaining composure is empathy. Not to excuse toxic behavior, but to understand that it often stems from unresolved pain or insecurities. Recognizing this can help you avoid taking their actions personally. It shifts your perspective from "why are they doing this to me?" to "what's driving this behavior?" This perspective helps you detach emotionally, making it easier to stay calm. By staying composed, you protect your energy and preserve your dignity. You set an example of how to handle difficult situations with grace and self-respect. Composure is a quiet kind of power, a reminder that you don't need to match toxicity with more negativity. Instead, you choose peace, not just for them, but for yourself. Redirecting or disengaging is a strategic approach smart people use when dealing with toxic individuals. It's not about avoidance or submission. It's about protecting your energy and maintaining control over the interaction. Toxic people often attempt to dominate conversations or situations by steering them toward negativity, conflict, or manipulation. Redirecting or disengaging allows you to avoid being drawn into their trap while maintaining your composure and priorities. Redirecting involves consciously steering the conversation toward a more neutral or productive topic. It's a subtle way of saying, I'm not going to entertain this negativity. For example, if someone begins complaining excessively or criticizing, you might respond with something like, I hear you, but let's focus on what we can do to improve the situation. Or, that's one perspective, but have you considered this? This technique not only deflects the negativity, but also shifts the tone of the interaction, often leaving the toxic individual with less room to escalate. Disengaging, on the other hand, is about knowing when to step away entirely. There are moments when redirecting isn't enough, when the toxicity persists despite your efforts to change the course of the conversation. In these cases, disengaging becomes the most effective option. Disengaging doesn't mean giving up or avoiding conflict. It means prioritizing your well-being by removing yourself from an unproductive or harmful situation. It can be as simple as ending the conversation with, I think we're not going to agree on this, so let's revisit it another time, or physically stepping away with a polite excuse. Smart people understand that engaging with toxic behavior often leads to a no-win situation. Arguments with toxic individuals rarely lead to resolution. Instead, they create a cycle of frustration and emotional drain. By redirecting or disengaging, you take control of the interaction without feeding into their need for attention or conflict. This approach demonstrates emotional intelligence. It's about recognizing what you can and cannot influence and choosing your battles wisely. Both techniques require self-awareness and confidence. Redirecting and disengaging may feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to addressing issues head-on or avoiding confrontation entirely. However, with practice, these methods become powerful tools for maintaining your boundaries and emotional health. They remind you that not every conversation needs to be won, and not every behavior deserves your response. Ultimately, redirecting or disengaging isn't about shutting people out. It's about creating space for healthier, more constructive interactions. It's a way of saying, I value my peace more than engaging in this negativity. And that's a decision that always leads to a stronger, calmer, and more focused version of yourself. Focusing on values rather than seeking validation is one of the most profound ways smart people navigate relationships with toxic individuals. Toxic people often operate in a way that leaves others doubting themselves, seeking approval, or feeling compelled to prove their worth. This dynamic can be draining and disempowering, but smart people rise above it by grounding themselves in their values rather than chasing external validation. When you prioritize your values, you stay connected to what truly matters, your integrity, principles, and goals. Toxic individuals may try to criticize or belittle you to elicit a defensive reaction or control the narrative. If you're seeking their approval, you might find yourself adjusting your behavior, second-guessing your decisions, or compromising your beliefs to appease them. But when you focus on your values, you create an internal compass that guides your actions, making you less susceptible to external influences. Values provide a sense of clarity and stability in moments of conflict or doubt. They remind you of who you are and what you stand for, regardless of what others say or do. For example, if honesty is one of your core values, you won't feel pressured to play along with a toxic person's manipulative tactics or false narratives. If respect is important to you, you'll treat others with dignity, even if they don't extend the same courtesy to you. This doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior. It means refusing to let someone else's toxicity dictate your actions. By focusing on values, you also reclaim your sense of self-worth. Validation seeking often places your worth in someone else's hands, making it contingent on their approval or recognition. This is especially dangerous when dealing with toxic people, who may withhold validation as a way to exert control. Smart people reject this dynamic. They know that their worth isn't determined by anyone else's opinion, but by their alignment with their own values. Living according to your values also helps you respond to toxic behavior in a way that feels authentic and empowering. You don't need to win an argument, prove a point, or gain the upper hand. Instead, you focus on what aligns with your principles and let go of the rest. This might mean walking away from a heated discussion, choosing silence over confrontation, or calmly asserting your boundaries without expecting immediate understanding or agreement. Focusing on values over validation frees you from the exhausting cycle of people-pleasing or conflict avoidance. It allows you to stand firm in your truth, even in the face of criticism or negativity. Toxic individuals lose their influence over you because you no longer seek their approval or fear their disapproval. You're driven by something deeper, something they can't take away. Your commitment to living a life that reflects your highest self. Seeking growth instead of revenge is a mindset that smart people adopt when dealing with toxic individuals. Toxic behavior often stirs up feelings of frustration, hurt, or even anger, making it tempting to retaliate or even the score. However, revenge keeps you tethered to negativity, dragging you into the same mindset you're trying to escape. Smart people recognize that the best way to rise above toxic situations is not to stoop to the same level, but to use the experience as an opportunity for personal growth. Growth means taking a step back and asking yourself, what can I learn from this? Every encounter with a toxic person has the potential to teach you something valuable about yourself, your boundaries, and even your triggers. It's a chance to build resilience, refine your communication skills, and strengthen your ability to stay calm under pressure. Instead of focusing on how to win against a toxic individual, smart people focus on how to emerge from the situation stronger and wiser. Seeking growth also involves shifting your perspective. Instead of seeing toxic interactions as purely negative, you can view them as challenges that test and develop your character. For example, when someone criticizes you unfairly, it's an opportunity to practice self-confidence and not let their words define you. When someone tries to manipulate you, it's a chance to hone your ability to recognize and resist such tactics. These situations, while unpleasant, can become stepping stones to greater self-awareness and emotional intelligence. Choosing growth doesn't mean condoning toxic behavior or ignoring the harm it can cause. It means refusing to let it consume you. Revenge keeps you stuck in a cycle of negativity, whereas growth allows you to move forward. It's about focusing on what you can control, your reactions, your mindset, and your future, rather than what you can't, which is changing someone else's behavior or making them feel the way they made you feel. Another aspect of seeking growth is learning to let go. Holding on to grudges or seeking payback only prolongs your connection to the toxic person. Letting go is not about forgetting or minimizing the impact of their behavior. It's about freeing yourself from its hold on your emotions. Forgiveness in this context isn't for their benefit, it's for yours. It's about reclaiming your energy and redirecting it toward your personal development. Ultimately, growth allows you to take ownership of your journey. Toxic people may create obstacles, but they don't have the power to define you unless you let them. By seeking growth instead of revenge, you turn those obstacles into opportunities, transforming adversity into a catalyst for becoming a more confident, compassionate, and empowered version of yourself. In the end, how we treat toxic people says more about us than it does about them. Recognizing the signs of toxic behavior, setting firm boundaries, staying composed, redirecting or disengaging when needed, focusing on our values over validation, and seeking growth instead of revenge. These aren't just strategies. They're reflections of strength, self-respect, and emotional intelligence. Toxicity thrives in chaos, but we don't have to participate in it. By choosing to approach toxic individuals with clarity and integrity, we protect our peace and prioritize what truly matters: our values, our energy, and our growth. It's not about defeating them or proving a point. It's about rising above and reclaiming control over our lives. Remember, the smartest people don't waste time wrestling with negativity. They rise above it, choosing paths that lead to resilience, wisdom, and peace. When you stand firm in who you are, toxic people lose their power, and in that, you find yours. Thank you.